You're listening to the Fitness Rants podcast, the show where unfiltered conversations meet real-world health and fitness.
We cut through the noise and deep dive into the truth behind health, nutrition, physique development, and the fitness industry itself.
We're your hosts, Ross Gilmore and Malin Blumdahl, experienced coaches and educators who have been part of the fitness industry for over 15 years.
If you're a coach, high performer, or someone just tired of mainstream nonsense, you're in the right place.
Now let's get into today's episode. Welcome to another episode of the Fitness Rant podcast. We are going to get into meal prep.
Meal prep.
Meal prep. Just
Meal prep.
All things meal prep. But more so specifically, I think we got into a conversation the other day about meal prep is something that we've done almost, I'm not going to say effortlessly, that'd be wrong because we've had a learning period like everyone else.
Consistently.
Every single week for as long as we've known each other, I think, just about.
Yeah, like 15 years, every single week. We started meal prepping together when we met, and I was prepping a bit before that. But every single week, or a couple of times a week, we've meal prepped, as in batch prepping things for the next few days.
Exactly.
And this clearly is not the norm, I don't think.
Well, I was going to say, I think we should pause, hold the boat a minute. But this is not a podcast. We've come out the gate blowing our own trumpet here, I think, a little bit. So we have to just...
We are amazing.
We're so fantastic as we do all this food prep. But we actually want to offer something practical to take away, like some words of advice, some experience, and also just some practical strategies.
Breaking some, challenging some limiting beliefs that people may have, misconceptions. Because it's just, honestly, like, I don't know how people who don't meal prep feed themselves. Like, that's how I don't understand how
it's
people...
just not ideal, is it?
No, true, but like, how do you, it's not, how do you function? Well, probably don't, but yeah, it's like...
Well, I think a good place to start with this is that what do you think is the big stuff that holds people back, or why is it maybe potentially feels harder for people nowadays to meal prep than it used to?
Well, we were talking about it the other day, weren't we? Like, that there's a big disconnect between what we eat and like
our involvement in it.
And a lot of that comes from the convenience world that we live in. It's so easy now to just order, especially in Dubai. I mean, I don't know, I can't speak for I think in Dubai it's especially easy to order stuff. Like, you can order anything at any time and it'll come like quickly. So yeah, it's that, and meal delivery companies, meal prep companies, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, but obviously it's relatively easy to like just rely on that, but it doesn't teach you anything about cooking, and you know, it doesn't teach you that. We can get into that maybe later, but in terms of like the skill of cooking and being involved in your food and passing that on to your kids and the next generation, a meal prep company isn't going to do that. You literally just took the words out of my mouth. I was literally going to get to is the next point is a lot has changed culturally. If you look at almost like your parents' generation, like your mum knows how to cook, and that was something she was taught by her parents or her mum or whatever else. And so that was something that if you go back 50 years ago, cooking meals at home was just sort of the norm. Go back even further than that, and it was literally the only thing people did. There wasn't fast food and convenience. No, like,
and
you had to know how to cook. And I mean, like, we got home cooked dinner, home cooked lunch. Like, I can barely remember even eating out when we were kids. Yep. I can barely remember. It was maybe like a birthday. We went for a meal. Like, it wasn't a thing. Like, we got
takeaways on a special occasion.
We didn't even have takeaways. We lived in the middle of nowhere on a farm. Like, there were no place. Like, the only thing we could get was like pizza, but you had to go and pick it up. You have to drive like half an hour to pick the pizza up, and then half an hour back.
It was cold.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah. So we had to keep the oven on to heat up the pizza. Like, it wasn't a thing. Like, you cooked the food, so. You know, and that made me excited. Like, I would always watch my mom cook, and, you know, like, get really excited about the food because she prepped it, she cooked it. So I wanted to.
She almost nurtured it, put her time and effort.
It's the foundation of my cooking and how I'm eating today. It's like her meals and it's the foundation.
Thanks, Lotta. So, appreciate it. So I'm benefiting from that as well, of course.
But
But listen, my mum was the same. I mean, you know what my mum was like. My mum loved being in the kitchen. She loved seeing the joy in our faces when she cooked something and just the reaction to tasting the food. And so I think that's something that when you make it with your, for lack of a better term for it, it's cheesy. It sounds make it with your soul. When you make it with your, you put your love and your passion into it.
It's like,
it's just different. And so I think when you prepare your own food, there's something energetically that happens with that. It's something that comes with that. Also, I think part of it is that you also have more control over what you're eating as well. But I think also it's just I do empathize with why people maybe feel like there's almost a greater amount of decision fatigue around what to eat, how to cook, because one, it's not as common, but two, life is different now for a lot of people. There's many families now where there are more dual income households. The pressure's on both individuals, whether it's just a young couple or whether it's a young parents who have like 1 or 2 or 3 kids, there's a pressure there now because sometimes they've both got obligations outside of their family life. And then as a result, the last thing they sometimes want to do when they come home is, you know, they've had all this mental load from work and all the pressures from work, and now they have to come home and they have to deal with all that. But I think we often talk about this, well, what's more stressful? Having to constantly then add to your decision fatigue because you're like, well, when's the next meal? Where do I order from? Versus, okay, it might be a bit more upfront work initially to spend 1, 2, 3 hours maybe batch preparing or preparing a bit more food. But if you do,
you don't have to think about it after
later.
That. Yeah.
And so it's almost,
time. I think that maybe like, okay, you know, what are the objections or the reasons why people don't cook more? We're not talking about cooking everything, but like just cooking. One of them is time, right?
Or perceived lack of time, as we like to call it. So people think they don't have time. And don't get me wrong, I know that, and I hate when, and this is again coming back to we spoke about in the last podcast about these younger, the early 20-year-old coaches and just like, oh, well, you know, we've all got the same 24 hours a day. How often do you hear that statement? It's like, well, we all have 24 hours in a day.
But not the same 24
Definitely
hours.
not the same. And certainly like to think that as a young 20-year-old that your worries and doubts and obligations are the same as someone who's been through 20 years of a career already and has like 2, 3 kids. It's not the same. People don't have the same amount of, say, free time, or some people's work schedules are more hectic, or some people have higher stakes jobs. And so we don't all have the same 24 hours, but what we certainly can is we all have the same ability to try and figure out what works for us, to try and build that skill of cooking and carve out at least some amount of time to take some autonomy and ownership over your food. So I think that's certainly that perceived lack of time. But then that sort of brings us to the next thing is that we also spoke about this in our last podcast about this concept of competence and that competence barrier that people have when it comes to training. Well, it's exactly the same with food. People feel that they come into the kitchen, let's just say they don't have the practice or the skills or the know-how to cook. It takes
time. It takes a long time, like to cook something from scratch the first time.
And it's almost like the enormity of, oh, this is going to take so much time. And what they start doing is rather than looking at, well, let's just make a start and try something, they start looking, well, it's going to take me
to 1 month,
2 months, 3 months. It's going to take me ages to learn this, and I'm going to suck at it. And what if the food doesn't taste good? Let's just go on Deliveroo and we'll just make an order. And that's
don't have to think about it.
Exactly. So I think almost the skill component, the competence component, then it's also, I think, like you said, just that belief that it's almost something much greater than it actually is. I think often the perception of how hard it is to make your own food holds a lot of people back as well.
This is the thing. Like, it actually is. There's so many like amazing, like super tasty, delicious foods that you can cook. I'm thinking mostly about the protein element now of the, you know, because that's kind of how I approach food. It's okay, I've got my carb foundation. It's going to be rice, pasta, potatoes, oats, whatever that is. That's like its own thing. And then they're going to be some kind of vegetable, but then it's the protein that kind of will make or break the dish, or the meal. And nobody wants to eat like dry chicken and rice, or dry chicken and steamed broccoli, and nobody wants to eat plain boring food. People want to eat food that's tasty. But there is, when it comes to like the protein element, so many delicious things that you can do that really doesn't take that long, doesn't contain a lot of ingredients, and that's really tasty. That can fit within a weight loss goal and a fat loss goal, or just a health goal.
I think it's such a good point, because I think one point that's came up with a lot of clients when I've spoken about the idea of meal prep is that they said that, and it's this word, the big O word, you know, overwhelm. They feel overwhelmed with all these recipes, and it's almost like they feel like they have to cook a new recipe for every meal they're having, and it's these recipes
different
that have
dinner
25
every day,
exactly.
Or a different, like, no, like your best friend is like literally like repetition and repeatability.
100%.
Like, so this is what we spoke about this
and
yesterday.
Not getting stuck into 25 list of ingredients type meals at the start.
If you're somebody, to make this a bit more practical, like if you're somebody who's overwhelmed and maybe you don't cook anything as of now, or very rarely, maybe you boil an egg at the weekend, I don't know, but you don't do a lot of cooking. And it's certainly when it comes to like maybe your main meals, like just find one thing, like one recipe. It could be, for example, like I love like a chicken chili or a beef chili or a beef burger, or like pick one recipe and then cook that, something that you can do ahead of time. So not necessarily something to eat there and then, but something that you can take with you to work for lunch, or something that you can have if you're home late from work the evening. pick one thing and then just replace that. They could, depending on how big of a batch you do, that may just be 3 meals, for example. But if you're cooking those 3 meals and you make that once a week for 4 weeks, it starts getting easier. You can throw that recipe, that dish together so quickly. Rest of the meals, keep them the way you would normally do. Order it from Deliveroo or order in or whatever you do. But just pick one thing. And then you layer on like the next thing. So maybe, okay, I'm going to prep 2 things now. Or maybe you want to change the recipe and just start like replacing some of your meals and then stack it, like build on it. And then
habit stacking 101, right?
Yeah, although it's like not necessarily
meal
habit stack it, like because it's not different habits, but it's just like rather build. It's more about building the skill and the competence, and even you might try a recipe and you maybe didn't like it, but like just find something that you enjoy, perfect that. And I know this for myself as well. Like when we were meal prepping over the week, like we often tend to repeat the same stuff. So that whatever recipes I'm in love with at the moment, it changes. But I have like obsessions about certain things. I'll cook them till I die. Like there was like a creamy chicken recipe. I think I did it every week for like 3 months, and then I stopped because I got fed up with it. But like I'll cook it. But whenever the stuff that you repeat, they're easier to remember. And then whenever I want to bring in like a new recipe, it's exciting. I'm excited because it's going to be a new recipe, but it always takes longer to do. So I need to like plan for that and be prepared for that. But whenever we're in our like just flow mode, like we just repeat the same stuff for X amount of time until we get bored, and then let's bring in something else. So we have like our recipes that we cycle.
100%.
Right now I'm pineapple crazy.
I know the pineapple chicken has been very
pineapple
good though.
Chicken in there. So that and that's also something we spoke about yesterday. It wasn't like, having things like an air fryer, pressure cooker, slow cooker, like take use of those, because some recipes like it takes no time. Like that pineapple chicken is mixing together some ingredients, cooking it for 15 minutes, then it's done. Like it's just so easy. That's what I said.
In modern day and age, like you let the technology, let the gadgets do the heavy lifting. We've got air fryers, pressure cookers, rice cookers, sous vide makers, whatever the hell you call them, and then slow cookers. And the list is endless. And even utensils, there's things you can do to chop up veg where you don't even need to cut things up. You can literally throw things on a block and then just slam it down, and you've got like cubed vegetables. There's so many ways to make it easier. But speaking of making it easier, I think often people see the enormity of a task and they build it up into something as, well, unless I'm doing the whole thing, it's not worth doing.
We don't even do the whole, like, and again, another good thing to cover, like when we were recently both in a fat loss phase, and when I'm in a fat loss phase, we're in a fat loss phase, like I like to have control of pretty much everything I eat. Like we'd have the odd meal out, but it would be kcal. Like I know that it's just a plain meal, it's super simple, but like we do cook and, tend to take more ownership of our food then. But like now when we're more in maintenance, like I had my second meal out today. I had my second meal out yesterday. We've had a couple of meals out over the weekend. We eat out a lot more, but we don't completely stop meal prepping. But it's not like we're cooking everything ourselves. But you can have some auto-regulation. I think also just to touch on that as well, like if you feel like the step into meal prepping just feels like it's so big, especially if you're in your head, you're thinking, well, now I'm going to meal prep, I have to sort all my meals. No, you don't. No, you could literally start with, like Mal said, one meal, and then you can stack that up later. In the meantime, while you're stacking, why not look at a different way of getting those other meals in? So you might, for example, outsource the other meals to like a meal delivery company. Yeah. So the meal delivery company sorts, let's just say, your breakfast and lunch, or your lunch and dinner. You take care of the other meal. One meal.
And maybe your snack as well. That way you've removed some of the burden and also some of the overwhelm from the idea of, I need to get all of this food organized. And
also, if you are a parent, like get your kids involved, teach them, get them excited about cooking and connecting with food. If not for yourself, like do it for your kids, because it is a skill and something that they will get from you. Otherwise, you're just going to pass on the same habits of not cooking, not knowing how to cook, and that kind of resistance towards it. But it's just because, like, why should you even care? Like, that's another thing. Like, why should you care about cooking your own food when you can order everything?
True. I think just to touch on that point, because we sort of spoke about in the last podcast about the importance of training and whatever else, and how you like training just for aesthetics. It's good to have other reasons beyond that, because it provides it's much more motivating if you've got reasons that aren't just aesthetics, i.e. you're trying to get stronger, you're trying to improve your health. Well, I think the same with nutrition. Like if your sole focus of your nutrition is I'm using this and doing this purely to control how I look, versus, okay, I've got a health component to this, maybe a body composition component, but I've also got another motivator, like you said, if you're a parent, being able to pass those lessons on to your kids, getting good at a skill, knowing that it's something that's going to improve your health, essentially having a non-aesthetic goal tied to the reason why you want to get better in nutrition makes it more of a pull of why you would want to get better at it as well. So I think it's funny how a lot of the sort of benefits of why you would train, for example, outside of aesthetics and body composition, you can also apply that same logic to the food side of things as well. And I think that's a powerful one for a lot of parents, is setting that example for your kids. That's a massively motivating reason as why you would want to lead by example and, you know, show them the way, like show them the steps towards having better habits as they get older as well. I think is so key. So I think another point as well is, when does convenience make sense? So when does it actually make sense to rely on convenience? What times in someone's life or in what season they are in their life, like when is it going to make sense to maybe lean into more convenience? What do you think?
I don't know. You had something in mind that you wanted to...
a few things, and bear in mind, like, just don't have no issue saying this. Like, we've got like a list of a few things. We just like to make sure that we're covering a fairly comprehensive list with this. Well, I think starting out, there's going to be points people's like we both work with individuals who have very high pressure jobs. They work for, you know, either multinational companies or maybe they run their own businesses, and they go through seasons within their business. Maybe it's like the end of the year, maybe it's like Q4 and there's a lot of pressure on meeting certain targets. There just might be times where it makes more sense to rely on outsourcing your food. And so I think that's where, if you're looking at convenience options, you don't have to rely necessarily on purely just ordering out or meal delivery companies. There's other ways that you can build some of your own stuff, but with convenience in mind.
I think this comes down to, it is, like your idea of how difficult it is magnified. Like you can do, like you can, I mean, there's stuff that you can buy pre-chopped vegetables. You can, you know, there's lots of things that you can do to make cooking more at home less cumbersome as well. You know, it's not cooking like a Michelin star level cooking, but or
the idea that every meal has to be like a structured, you know, like traditional meal, like it's a plate of, you know, animal protein or vegan protein, like protein, a portion of protein, veg, starches. Like, many people feel like when they're thinking of their day, it has to be like all meals, but it's not necessarily the case. If you look at me, like I've been for a while now because it's been great for convenience and it's something that's just easy to put together. It doesn't require heating up, so it's also convenient to carry with me as I have my overnight oats. I absolutely love it. Like I never get bored of it, and it's something that literally takes me less than a few minutes to throw together. I literally throw in, you know, milk, yogurt, some powdered stuff like cacao powder, PB2, whatever else, protein powder, mix it with oats, boom, it's done. I mean, it's literally done, and that's something that is minimal prep time, doesn't require heating up. So leading into making up parts of your meals across the day with options which are quick to put together, but also are easy to transport and carry with you if you're on the go as well.
I think I was going to say, like, it comes down to like just taking active interest in your meals and spending a little bit of time, like the day before each, like in the evening, what am I going to eat tomorrow? What are my meals going to be? Like, not a lot of like women, what they do a lot is that they skip meals, so they snack on things and they don't eat. Like they maybe just, they're hungry, you're busy, and then the end of the day, and then you end up overeating. But you have to just think ahead, plan ahead just enough so that, you know, even if that is, there may be certain things, you may order your lunch every day, you may not want to bring it with you, but like just know in advance, have a plan, because then you're going to be less likely to just grab stuff. But no, my lunch is going to be whatever, salmon and from this place. And so that, I think that is the key thing. And yes, I do recommend that everybody learn how to cook and at least does some meal prepping as a skill. But I think the overarching key thing is just not going with the flow with your nutrition, like just winging it, like waking up, just like, what am I going to have for lunch today? Like having to decide what am I going to eat, what am I going to do, what am I gonna, like just actually know this is what I'm going to have. Like we know pretty much at the start of every week roughly what we're going to eat because we've already prepped some stuff and we have an idea about, we have our go-to stuff. Something that your sister does that I love as well, which is a good tip if you're struggling with, is like having like almost like themed dinners. So maybe you do a stir fry on a Monday. I think that's what they do. They always do a stir fry on a Monday. And then you can do like, I don't know, Taco Tuesday, for example. And then you can maybe have on a Thursday, or like if your weekend is on a Saturday, most people, like maybe on a Friday, you order a poke bowl or you order something in. So if you have like that, can also help that decision fatigue, that you have like themed days and meals. And then obviously some of those meals that maybe you haven't for dinner, that will be your lunch the next day. So do like a chili Wednesday, for example, then you have a chili Thursday lunch. So it's just having like themes that you run with also helps, because I think that's a big problem for a lot of people, is just not knowing what you're going to have, like not having that plan. So if you can have that, then everything else is a lot easier.
And that decision fatigue creates a lot of like stress and anxiety that just could be avoided if you were, and we like to refer to this concept of, even my clients, when it comes to their tracking of their nutrition, I like to teach them a lot about being proactive with their tracking rather than reactive. And a lot of the decisions that people make, often when they're really hungry, tired, frustrated, etc., label the emotion, whatever applies to you, and you end up making not so great decisions because you're allowing yourself to be reactive to the choices and the circumstances in that moment, rather than having a plan ahead of time and knowing what's coming your way. And even if you're eating out, so the next point I want to get to is, if you even have, like, for example, your work day, or let's just say you're someone who works, some days I have clients like this, especially Dubai's a bit like this sometimes. Sometimes people work from home, and then they have some days that they're in the office, so their schedule isn't exactly the same every single day of the week. They have some office days and some home days. Okay, well, based on that, which days are you in the office? Which days are you at home? The days you're in the office, I'll give an example. One of my newer clients, it's very convenient for him to go to one of the places downstairs in the office to order some food. So what have we done? We've went, well, let's look at the menu of that place, the particular place that's a better choice than some of the others. Let's have a look at that menu and let's choose 2 items off that menu that you can keep in rotation that we know are going to fit. And let's make sure we get a hold of the calories and macros so we know what we can account for here. And that's something that, just by knowing that, right, it's these 2 options. And you know what? On Tuesday, my office day, I'm going to have this. And on my Thursday office day, I'm going to have that.
And that takes away a lot of stress as well. Like, we kind of mentioned that already, but like just that not knowing what you're going to eat, like that would stress me out. Like, I like to be productive and effective, and, everybody's busy. So having to think of that's quite annoying. I love food, but it's quite annoying as a human that you have to eat so many times in a day. Like, I wish in a way you could just eat once a day and you'd be fine. But like, we do really need to eat, 3-4 times, at least 3 times, maybe 3-4 times per week, depending on how active you are. If you're more active, you probably need to eat 4 times at least, but not per week, but per day. That's a lot of eating. Yeah. There's a lot of meals. There's a lot of things that you have to think about, like thinking about going to the gym, planning that in 3 days a week versus 4 meals every single day. You have to take some of that mental fatigue out of the equation by having repetition and stuff. So like you said, what you did with your clients, and also something like, for me, like what helps me a lot is I pretty much have the same breakfast every day. Like, I've had the same breakfast now for 4 weeks. I've maintained the one that I had during the fat loss phase, but before this I had another one. So you can change it, but just repeat it until you get bored, and then maybe change it to something else. I know some people who've had the same breakfast for life, more or less. Like, some people are very habit-based that way, but like, just get a good breakfast in and try and repeat it, and then have your go-to sort of things that you do. But whatever you do, like, just don't like skip meals or snack, or that's what you want to avoid.
Well, I think a good question to then ask off of that, and I've certainly been asked this from clients, and I'm sure you have, God knows, many times as well, is which meal makes the most sense to start with. It's almost this idea of meal anchoring, the concept of meal anchoring, right? So it's like, okay, well, should I start with my dinner? Should I start with my breakfast? Like, what do you think to that? Where would you say, if you had to, based on your experience with most of your clients, where is the lowest hanging fruit when it comes to meal anchoring, would you say?
I usually start with breakfast, like the first meal. Like, I feel like that's because that sets the tone for the rest of your day. And then, depending on the client, we would look at either lunch or dinner second, depending on where there's either you can go both ways. Either you can start with the meal that's the most problematic meal first, like the meal that you tend to lose control of. You can maybe, okay, let's start with that. And
bear in mind, we're not saying there's a right or wrong here.
Yeah,
you have
exactly.
To figure it out,
it depends on the person and the client, like where you start. But and it depends on their circumstances as well. In 100%. Terms of work.
I'll give you a good example. One that I like to use, and I know you've used this before as well, is sometimes clients are having a clear issue between dinner and lunch. So one great solution is to create double the amount for dinner. That dinner becomes your lunch the next day. So you do doubling up on portions of things. Yeah. So you bear in mind that we're not saying that these are the definitive list, but we're just spitballing off the top of our head here, like some ideas of, like Miles mentioned there, okay, you could anchor breakfast if that's the thing that really trips you up the most. Maybe it's dinner that trips you up the most. And actually, while you're at it, you could actually just take care of lunch as well. If you double up on the dinner option, that becomes your lunch for the next day. So there's lots of ways, depending on where your position is and what you struggle with most, of going about this. So many strategies.
The key is to like, especially if you've if your nutrition at the moment is pretty bad or not great, not very supportive, nutritious, you know, like you can be, you can be overfed but undernourished at the same time. That's a big problem. Yeah. So if that's where you're at and, you know, potentially also struggling with weight loss or have gained weight, then, you know, it has to start with the nutrition and getting nutrient quality up, getting caloric density down. So yeah, and I usually, as I said, like breakfast is a good place to start because that impacts, like what you have in the first part of the day impacts how you feel later in the day. Yeah. So getting something in the morning, you know, it's important.
100%. I think that's probably quite a good place to wrap up. I mean, we've covered, I think, all the key points we wanted to, but just the sort of key takeaways. I think first things first is take away the complexity.
Yeah.
Meal prep, when you add complexity from the start, is definitely a surefire way to end up feeling like you just like, you know what, this is something that is not possible for me. I can't stick to it. And you lean into relying on a meal prep company or you end up ordering off Deliveroo. So keep it simple to start with.
Yeah. Batch cooking.
Yep.
I have a bunch of recipes. So, you know, that I'm happy to share with lots of easy, simple, because I'm all about simple, easy cooking.
So you can reach out to Mal after this if you want to know more about some of the bulk food prep that we do and some of our favourite recipes, then just drop her a little DM and we'll obviously put both of our Instagram handles in the description of this podcast, whether it's on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, etc. I think another thing as well, like just to close on that, is that if you're feeling a lot of friction with whichever approach that you're trying to take, it's probably not the right approach.
Yeah.
Also, when it comes to trying to change any habit, we want to remove friction as much as possible. So like Mal said, whether it's anchoring that dinner, whether it's breakfast, find the meal, the low-hanging fruit that makes the most sense for you and start there. Keep it simple, but absolutely one thing above all else, plan ahead. Take the time. We'd almost prefer someone did one less training session in the gym and spent that hour of their week planning out their food for the week ahead. Guarantee that if you can do that, plus...
Yeah, and again, if you're not planning everything probably is going to feel a bit overwhelming. So that's where, okay, we'll just plan one meal.
Yeah.
And pick one recipe and do that until that feels easy. Because that is still a step in the right direction that will probably result in some changes in how you feel. You may even, if you have a weight loss goal, that might be enough to start seeing some change as well. Like you don't need to make changes to everything, same as with you know, training and health. Like it doesn't have to be massive. You just have to be consistent and small steps.
100%. You know? I think just as a closing thought, more so than anything else, you're not always going to be motivated to do this. We're certainly not always motivated to meal prep.
I'm never motivated. No, it's not true. Like sometimes I enjoy it. I try actually recently in my 40s, as I'm getting older, I'm trying to be more present. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, I'm actually trying to like just be a bit more present. Meal prep sometimes has turned into a bit of a just get it done as quickly as possible. But I'm trying to like, you know what, I'm actually going to enjoy this, chopping the veg, and I'm going to be present with the cooking, you know, sometimes more. But
so like you said, it's often a good time to just like sort of take your mind away from other things you maybe been focused on or worried about or concerned about. Meditative, you might even call it. But I think the key point away from that there is that don't just see it as like another task to get done. Don't just treat it as a chore. You're not always going to feel like doing it, but that structure is also going to pay off always.
Yes.
Regardless.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of the Fitness Rants podcast.
If you got value from this conversation, be sure to hit subscribe on either YouTube or your preferred podcast platform so you don't miss any of our weekly rants.
Oh, and if you're feeling generous, we would really appreciate it if you would drop us a 5-star rating or a review, because it would help more listeners like you to find the show.
If you haven't already, be sure to connect with us on Instagram. We'll leave our handles in the episode description.
Thanks for tuning in. We look forward to having you back for our next episode.